Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a code walkthrough on the current state of the Dragrace game. So I'm going to try to mix in showing the code with showing the game itself. I'll start with the code. I want to say for Ren'Py, if you have a block where you say, well, let me start this way. If you want to have a line of Python code, you could put this $sign at the beginning, and then you put your Python code after it, and you can use any Python code that way for one line. But if you want a block of Python code, you would put Python colon. If you do init Python, that is a block that runs before anything else. So you can put in there your import statements or anything that you need to run at the very beginning. After that, we have variables. So we have roughly 100 variables. All these, down to line 111. Those are mainly original. Like, there are some things that I've added. This definitely needs to be redone because we should not have 100 variables. Especially for something this small, it shouldn't need that many. I need to look at it and I just haven't done it yet. We have two screens, so the stats screen is here, and I will need to, like, I have this comment in here to incorporate some other things. I need to do that. Again, I'll do that later. And then the car location screen, which I've showed in the past. Then we have our start label. This part changed. This hexes line is because I found in Ren'Py how you get random choices. You use ren'py.random. They have choice, they have int, they have float. Choice uses anything that was in a list. So choice hexes will choose one item randomly from this list, this hexes list. And then we have that repeated 6 times so that this is our color, number sign, and then a series of random numbers and letters which fit into the hexadecimal code. We still have our player. We're still creating the default name of player 1 and player 2. However, we're starting with current car at 1. We're decreasing to 0. And then once it gets to -1, we exit the loop. The reason I'm doing that is because the cars are supposed to swap every phase. So where am I? This is phase 1. And when we get to phase 2, you'll see the line here. You will now swap lanes. And so the way I'm doing that is, I believe, current car is the phase number mod 2. And so mod is remainder division, and that means for phase 1, current car is, we go player 1 and then player 0. So basically I'm moving them backwards, and so that's why in creating the players, I create player 1 before I create player 0, so that they will be able to enter their names in the same order that they're playing the game. Yeah, I'm not very articulate. Let me see, start. We have that loop. We still have our background, a non-existent background scene. Now we're choosing the type of game because I found out there's not 6 phases. There's 5 phases, and then there's this optional stock race, which is actually, it's on my gaming channel. I think that's beginning of July, so it might be out at the time this is posted or sometime around then. So we jump to phase 1 if they want to go by phases, and we jump to stock if they want to do the stock race. So I'll scroll down and show the stock race is not in here. The stock race is its own file, label stock. Where are we? Okay, so all phases are gonna look the same, and eventually I want to condense them into just have a label called phase and just do everything inside phase instead of having 5 separate labels, one for each phase. The general idea is we do the player gets to buy a new car or make modifications to their current car, and then we race. And we just do that 4 times in each phase, and then we do 5 phases total. I don't have every race going right now because I was working, so I believe the races are now correct. There's a lot of things in here that need to change. For example, if I scroll down, you'll see all these labels. Label label F1260, label 1360, label 1380. Those are the original line numbers, so all it's doing is saying, when you get to this, do these things that were originally under this line number, and then go to the whatever the next line number is you're supposed to go to. Instead of having actual functions. I think I have a couple at the bottom. So we have label gears, we have label check TR. I don't know what TR stands for. Oh, transmission. If something's going on with the transmission, we're supposed to go to one of these lines. But up until all those, we still have label 14400, 14255. So we still have all of those labels in there. There are some that never get called. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Generally, the races work. So the next thing I was working on was this choose car mod. It's meant to say, okay, we have 3 variables. They have a choice to look at other cars to choose if they want to purchase one, to make modifications to their current car, or to just go ahead and race with what they have now. So we have these 3 variables: look available, mods available, and race available, meaning in this menu, we have this, if look available is true, then this option is shown, and if they click it, they'll call this label. And then the same here. If mods available is true, what we actually have going on is that their car chooser only works for the first race. It does work, I just need to put all the other files in and have the program be able to say which file to call when. For the modifications, nothing's actually happening. In label modifications, I don't actually know how to follow along. I don't actually know for a fact what is happening, but I know when you run the game, I guess I forgot to swap between the games. When you run the game, it will never get to anything about doing modifications. So I'll show part of the game. Player in lane 1, so I'm gonna press enter on these questions so that you can see it still works. So we have, what type of game do you want to play? We have the stock race or the full 20 race game. So I'll do stock race just to show. Beginning stock race, end of stock race, and then we exited. So if I go back in, if we choose the full 5 phases, we start phase 1, we still have, oh, see, up in the stats, it's player 2 and then player 1. Because this first one is 0, is index 0, and the second is index 1. So they're swapped. I actually need to, I need a lot of work on the stats part, though. Okay, you each start with 250. So this first player, it's actually, I think their name must have chosen a dark color. Oh, no, okay, I was wrong. So here's player 1. Decided to look at cars. The only option was to look at cars. They don't have one to modify or race yet. The player 1 can choose their car. Now, I think if you choose junkyard, nothing happens. If you choose disreputable, you get 4 cars. These are cars you should be able to either purchase or finance. You should have enough money or they should be new enough to finance. It has the first 3 description lines, so I'm just gonna pick the 1941 since it's newest. And now we're on player 2. I don't have this right. It should say their name here, but that's player 2. And so you see player 1 is green, player 2 is pink, and if we were to exit and come back in, they might be different since they're choosing randomly. Okay, and same thing, we're gonna choose a car, and I'll choose a 42. Alright, beginning race 1, and we're just gonna go through all the things that we normally have. Okay, this is a custom machines. So this is what should be in our stats screen for the race. So this should be shown for the entire race. This line never changes. But now we have what's actually going on. So at 0.1 feet, this lane 2 is at 0.1 feet. Lane 1 stopped burning rubber. And then we went to 0.4 seconds. I'm wondering if some of this is wrong. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all of these. This obviously should be redone so that we have what's happening in lane 1 more clearly on lane 1 side and what's happening in lane 2 more clearly on lane 2 side. But this is the way it is right now. I'm just happy the game works at all. Alright, so we have 8 seconds, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13.8, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 18.4, 19, 20. So we had 20 seconds. We're at these distances, and you can see lane 1 is at 1,267.2 feet. The full drag race is 1,320 feet. So I don't know why it then says at 19.2. I think this actually needs to be increased by 1. I think this time is displaying incorrectly. That's at lane 2 had been at 1,100 something feet at 20 seconds, and now it's at 1,200. So I think the only problem really is this time is being displayed incorrectly. This line probably should be taken out, and we have end of race 1. Player 1 is in lane 1. 1 was the successful winner of race 1. I don't know how to say that right. It tells what they're driving, their money, which is not completely correct, how many races they've won, and now they can choose to make modifications. You can modify the car, you can press yes or no. If the player wants to modify, this is a note for me. And then there's just an output line. Oh, wait, what are we doing? Oh, you've opted not to modify at this time. Okay. And then we go through the same thing for player 2. I'm going to show you if you see I've raced the car as is, the race will begin shortly. Now we're beginning race 2, so we're going to go through, everything's going to be exactly the same because we haven't changed anything. we have end of race 2. I'm gonna skip through the rest. So we're gonna have race 3. Oh. Wonder, so if you say look at cars, we say junkyard. Okay, so that's how that happens. Because if I say disreputable on this, I think the game will crash. Yeah, as it doesn't know how to deal with that. There's no file there for what it would need to look at. So I'm not gonna sit here and try to read through everything that's happening, but that's the general idea, that we have the 5 phases. Each phase has the buy or modify and then race, and that happens 4 times, and then we exit. If I think of anything else that I think is interesting to talk about in here, I will make another video for that. But otherwise, the next video I believe will be on some not coding, but actually setting up the game to be released, things along those lines. So thank you for watching, and let me know what projects you're working on.